Uh-oh. There we go. How old are your kids?
They are 12, 13, 16.
That lovely age.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Kellaprice with Healthy Fit, and I'm so excited to have Sylvia Waller here with us today. She is an advocate for the Alzheimer's Association. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to chat with you because this is a topic that impacts a lot of our active aging seniors, people that I work with each and every day. As we age, our risk for things like dementia and Alzheimer's gets increased. But before we talk
Yeah.
about that, I would like to just share a little bit with our audience about you and find out a little bit more about yourself. You started your career in marketing. As a Black
Yes.
woman in business, what steps have you had to take to achieve your success?
Well, one thing that I had to learn is to be humble at the bottom. So when I first got out of school, I really didn't expect to start, at the top. So I actually was humble with just starting um, at the bottom and working my way up and aligning myself with successful people and people who were working on being successful. So the one thing that I did was to align myself with a mentor that had actually guided me along the way. And that I would say that's the best advice because being a young person, um, you might have all the knowledge straight out of school, but success comes with knowledge as well as wisdom. So the longer you work on a job, there's certain things that you can't teach in a workbook, in a school book. So it just comes with time and it comes with um, just learning the trade. So I would say that would be my best advice.
And that's great advice. Having a mentor, even as you progress in your career, even now, 20 years into business and running several businesses myself, I still have mentors. I still surround myself with individuals who can help me improve my skill sets, but also as
Right.
a network to build each other up so that we can leverage each other's diversity and strengths and skills and help everyone become more successful.
Exactly.
You also are a medical esthetician. What advice do you have for women who want to preserve their natural beauty?
I would say embrace your own beauty and stay true to yourself and never try to change who you are. The first step would be to um, make sure that you embrace a good skincare regimen which means every morning, every night, wash, moisturize, and treat. When I say treat, that is for like a person who has acne. Um, Treat your skin to salicylic or um, glycolic acid, which removes bacteria and excess oil from the skin. And also to eye cream. An eye cream is very essential. You're never too young to use an eye cream. And sunscreen is very, 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 very important. Um, so I would say that uh, by getting a good skincare regimen that preserves your skin for a good, healthy look. And hydration is the key to good, healthy, supple skin. So, as a makeup artist, I don't want to change the way your skin looks. Your makeup should actually look like skin and just enhance the condition of your skin. And it's actually going to um, uh, reveal the real condition of your skin. So just imagine if you have the street when the construction workers lay tar, the rocky roads in the street are still going to be there. It's just they're laid over tar. Tar is laid over. So that's kind of how your skin looks. So if your skin is rocky and uneven, makeup is going to just reveal the true condition. So that is the most important because your skin is going to be a beautiful backdrop for your makeup. That's your goal. Um, you want to enhance the eyes and just give the face a little dimensional structure, but not change and look artificial. So, skincare is the basis for um, nice, glowy skin, and then the makeup just kind of enhances.
Those are so many great tips that you pointed out. Everything from wearing sunscreen, I make sure that I have a moisturizer that has the zinc oxide in it that I actually get
Yes.
from a medical spa to ensure that my
Hmm.
skin is protected from the sun because I love exercising and being outdoors. And
Yeah.
I am a little vain. I don't want to have a lot of wrinkles, so I take good care of my skin. And sunscreen is part of that. Drinking a lot of water. I drink a gallon of water a day as a fitness professional. And I feel like it
That's
does
good.
make your skin more clear and supple. When your skin is dry and dehydrated, all the wrinkles come out because
Yeah.
the skin is so
Just
parched.
yeah, a perfect analogy. I used to use this analogy with some of the clients I had. Just think of your skin as a grape. When you look at a grape has fine lines in it, but because it's full of water, you can't really see them. You just see how juicy and supple the grape is. But as soon as you remove the water and the moisture from that grape, it starts to turn. You start to see more of the wrinkles and the lines, and then eventually it turns into a raisin. And that's the point we don't want to be. Is a
That is
raisin.
a great analogy. I love that. I also loved your tip about eye cream as someone who doesn't always get the best sleep because of anxiety
Hmm.
and things. I tend to get some dark circles and things, and I use good eye cream to moisturize because this is the first area that you get wrinkles, but also good coverage.
Yeah,
The eyes are one of the first things people are going to notice about you. And as a fitness pro,
exactly.
a lot of times I don't wear a full face of makeup, but I am gonna throw on my lashes and some lipstick. And it's if you have a good skin, a good base foundation, you don't need a lot. You can leverage your natural beauty. By the way, you
That's
look
right.
amazing. You turned 60
Oh,
this year,
thank you.
right?
Yes, I did. I did. It's a
How do you
milestone. I mean,
Yeah, how do you do it? How
what's
do you maintain your fitness and health to look so youthful?
Well, my mission is to stay healthy. There's some health issues in my family, and I have some. So, um, a good diet and exercise has kind of helped me to maintain and to stay off medication. So that's my goal, is to stay off medication. Now, the benefits of that is staying in shape. So once you start getting in shape and you feel good, um, when I work out, I feel good. When I eat properly, I feel good, and my body is so used to it that if I eat something that is not necessarily good for me, like a lot of fried foods, my body will tell me, and I just don't feel good. And I don't like that feeling. So, I get a lot of sleep. Sleep is important. The way I look at it is when I sleep, I reboot. So, stressful day, go to sleep, reboot, take care of it the next day. So, those are some of the things. Drink a lot of water. I'm working on drinking more, but I've cut out sodas and that kind of thing. So just water. Um, I like Crystal Light, but sometimes I want a little taste in my water. So, but yeah, so I just try to keep a healthy diet and exercise, and that helps.
Diet, exercise, and sleep. Those are great benchmark uh, items that I focus on with my clients when we're trying to create a healthier lifestyle. And we know that those things can help prevent a lot of different illnesses, including Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Your family has a history of dementia and Alzheimer's. What are some of the risk factors?
Some of the risk factors, they don't really have um, um, sorry, I just lost my train of thought, an exact cause of Alzheimer's. And that is a stressful, and the hard part of it, because you don't know. So, but they do have, studies have shown that diet, exercise, and a few other things like sugar, inflammation, heart disease, um, high blood pressure, um, um, diabetes. Those are all connected to Alzheimer's. So they have little pieces that are just like, they're out there. They haven't connected yet, but they do know that those are um, directly related to Alzheimer's. So there's no cure right now, and there's no prevention. But studies have shown that with a good diet and exercise, you can prolong the disease or even lessen the severity. So, with a person like me, I'm very high risk because African Americans are twice as likely to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Women are 2/3 of the population in Alzheimer's. And if you have Alzheimer's in your family, you're more likely to be diagnosed. So I've got 3 strikes. So I'm a little nervous. So I'm trying to do everything that I can to prevent it. Now, is that guaranteed that I'll get it? No. Um, and they even have a test that you can take to see if you have the gene, but the tests are not, um, they're not truly accurate. Some people have tested positive and they never did get the gene, and some have tested negative and had the gene and got Alzheimer's. So my thing is, I'm I'm a person of faith. So if it's in my destiny, I'm just going to do everything I can to, lessen the severity, or if I can push it back to when I'm 90, I'm okay. So, with my family history, that's one reason why I take it serious. And, with the loss of my dad, it hit me really deep. And um, that's when I really got involved with the Alzheimer's Association. Prior to that, I didn't even know they existed. I heard about them, but I just didn't know how they could help me. So, my mission right now is just to get out in the community and let people know that the Alzheimer's Association is out there. There's a 1-800 number that you can call, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself, that you can call if you have any questions, if anybody in your family is acting a little peculiar. So if the community doesn't know, then they don't know how to get help. And that was me. And as an only child, I had to take care of my dad myself. And I tell you, that was the darkest time in my life. And I had to rely on strength that I didn't know I had. And sometimes you have strength that you have no idea that you have until you have to deal with a certain situation that requires it. So if I can help someone not have to go through that, because there is help, and you're not alone, um, then that's my mission. So.
So, for those who don't know, your dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. When was he
Mhm.
diagnosed?
He actually had dementia. So,
Okay.
backing up with Alzheimer's and dementia, dementia is the umbrella for Alzheimer's and several other dementia related diseases. So, Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. So, my dad had, it was a different form of dementia. It was more, um, they were thinking that it was more alcohol related. So there's another dementia that alcohol can induce the dementia. And so he was diagnosed mm, 3 years before he passed. So I would say 2015 and 14. And I just remember when he wasn't able to connect, when I would ask him a question and we couldn't connect. It was like two ships in the night. And he would answer something totally different from what I asked him. And he just could not comprehend our conversation. And he would talk a lot about his childhood and he would repeat himself. And I do remember it was a summer afternoon, and I remember driving home and I cried because I said to myself, the dad that I once knew no longer exists. And I had entered into a new season of my life where the hero and the person who was my strong tower and took care of me and had all the answers no longer existed. And now I had become his protector. And that was a hard transition, being a daddy's girl. And, to watch your dad, who was the strong guy, become this little frail, you know, person that turned into a child. It was
I
very
think
difficult.
that's probably one of the hardest things about this disease, not only the progression of how it manifests itself, but also
Hmm.
for the caregivers, seeing a family member have this long-term illness and the changes that takes place is emotionally draining as a
It
caregiver.
really is.
Other than the
It really.
Alzheimer's Association, how else did you receive support? What advice can you give to others? Because a lot of us, we're living longer, our parents are living longer in a lot of cases. And so many of us are going to, at some point, have to be caregivers for our parents.
Hmm.
So, what advice do you have for us in that situation?
I would say definitely make sure you take care of yourself. And that is the first start of my health journey. I've always been a healthy person, but stress can take a serious toll on your life. And taking care of a loved one with Alzheimer's is very stressful emotionally and physically. And my best advice would be to take time for yourself, to get away, um, go work out, go get a massage, get something that is relaxing, something that will take you away from the situation so that you can reboot and you can sleep and wake up the next morning and be ready for the challenge. Because that is the problem, is when it's continual and you're constantly um, uh, in the face of the stress and you never give yourself a break, then you start to break. And that's the last thing you want to do, is to break, because you still have to take care of your family as well as your loved one who's dealing with the disease. And, studies have shown too that caregivers, I think it's like two-thirds of the caregivers have died before the person they're taking care of because of stress-related illnesses. So that is pretty true, because when I was taking care of my dad, my sugar level was up, my blood pressure was up, I had gained weight, and I just wasn't feeling good. And I suffer with migraines, and my migraines were coming, and I couldn't sleep, and I was stressed. And, he was calling me with, delusional things that were happening at the house. And, you're sitting there going, that can't be, but you have to entertain it, and you can't make the person feel like they're crazy. So you have to talk to them in their language. So, when, for example, dad would say there are worms in the carpet, and I would say, Dad, stop staring at the carpet, because if you stare at it long, it will move. So little things like that, and rather than saying, that's not happening, which will make them defensive. So you just kind of play along with it. If people are in your backyard and they're having a party and you didn't give them permission, well, are they bothering you? No. Um, are they tearing up property? No. Well, do you think they can stay out there and have some fun? Okay. So little things like that, you just have to, and that also calms you down, because the one thing you cannot do is argue with a person who has dementia or Alzheimer's. You will lose, and you will drive your blood pressure up. So I would say the best advice would be to make sure that you find, um, I'd say every day, find an hour to just unwind and reboot for yourself.
So I
That's what helps me.
totally agree that self-care is so important. No matter what type of illness, if you're helping support a family member that has a long-term, prolonged disease or illness, it can be really
Mhm.
taxing, whether it's, cancer or
Yes.
Alzheimer's or dementia, any number of different health issues that require constant doctor's appointments and medications and treatments. And with dementia and Alzheimer's, a lot of times there's a fear that if I leave the house or I leave them alone, something is going to happen, because they might leave the stove on, or they might wander off, or any number of different things. What kind of support did you have? Did you use respite care? And was there a point, or is there a point? It's very hard to decide or make the decision to have nursing care, but at what
It
point
is.
is that something that families should maybe say, this isn't good for our health, and I can't give adequate care anymore? Because it can be really heartbreaking to make that decision, but at some
Oh,
point,
yeah.
sometimes that's the best option for everyone.
Well, yeah, exactly right. We were getting to that point, and that is something that a family has to sit down and talk about. Um, my dad's situation declined rapidly, and he lived alone. And we actually purchased a ranch style home just in case, we had to bring him over to live with us because I saw him declining rapidly. And he lived in a two-story, and his stairs were pretty, uh, pretty high. So, I worried about him falling down the stairs and keeping the stove on because there were a couple times I'd gone over there and, he forgot to turn the stove, the eye off, and or he had burned up his rice and stuff like that. So I started getting concerned. Well, is dad okay to live by himself? But he was very adamant about staying in the house by himself and not moving in with us. So I would visit every day. I would make sure I checked on him every day, but I also had a nurse that came in. Um, she came in 3 times a week, and she came in 3 times a week because he had uh, heart failure, which he needed a nurse to come in to assist him with his leg wrap. So that was the reason that we were able to get someone to come in 3 times a week for free. But if that is the case and there's no physical or um, other mental issues, then you may have to pay for a nurse to come in. So, as a family, you need to sit down and say, okay, is mom and dad or sister or brother, are they a detriment to themselves living at home? And we were getting to that point because, he was doing some crazy stuff. And we took his license. And a lot of times when you take the license away from a person who's very independent, they give up. And that was my dad. So we surrendered his license in June, not June, March, and he passed away in April. So he just gave up. But if he had not given up, then we would have had to make the choice. You know, do we bring him over to live with us? Um, do we have someone come in to sit with him and check on him every day? But it was at a point, because I did that, I went over every day, but it was at a point where he needed somebody to stay with him all the time. So that's the decision you have to make. Are they well enough for me to just check on them? And that's usually the beginning stages. But when they start migrating into, the second and third stages, they can't stay alone. So either they need to be in your home or a memory care center. And depending on what kind of dementia it is, so if you have, say, frontal lobe, which is it's more of a like a brain injury can bring on dementia. The frontal lobe dementia is very violent. So that's the person who might try to hurt themselves or hurt you. If that's the case, they need to be in a facility, a memory care facility, or even a person who wanders, person who can get out of the house and just takes off walking. They need to be in a facility because you cannot be up 24 hours. And that's when you will lose your mind trying to keep them safe. So you have to decide what level are they at, and is the family able to take care of this person? So those are some of the decisions that, goes into how do I take care of my loved one with dementia or Alzheimer's.
Now, before you get to that point that you have to care for them, we have to identify possible signs and symptoms, because as we age, our brain is a complex thing. And
Mhm.
shoot, I leave my office and I go to get something and I'm halfway there. And sometimes I'm like, what did I go to get? And I have to retrace my steps. So let's talk about some of the signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's. And just because someone has one of the signs doesn't mean that they have Alzheimer's or dementia. But if you
Right.
see multiple symptoms or a progression that things are getting worse, it doesn't hurt to go to the doctor and have an assessment as part of a annual physical to find out if there
Right.
is some underlying issue. So the first is memory
Right.
loss. And this is one of the most common signs of Alzheimer's, forgetting recently learned information. Um, what are some of the
I
things
do that all the
that so this
time.
would be forgetting important dates or events, asking the same questions over and over, um, and relying more and more on memory aids for key things like taking medication. And just because you need a memory aid, again, does not, I have a planner right next to me and I have reminders that go off on my phone for appointments. That doesn't necessarily mean I have a problem. Um,
Right.
Difficulty in problem solving, numbers, concentration. And if you have any stories or personal anecdotes, that things that you saw as a caregiver, feel free to share those. Some people living with dementia may experience changes in their ability to follow a plan or work with numerical based information. This might include having difficulty paying monthly bills, difficulty concentrating, and doing things, taking a longer time to do any kind of problem solving.
Mhm. Yeah, I saw pretty much all of it. S They don't always pop up, um, at the same time. I mean, there may be, like, the progression of thinking back. My dad would forget. He was just very forgetful. Then he started, repeating. I noticed he would repeat himself. It's like, "Dad, you just told me that." And he, would keep repeating the same thing after, over and over. Um, when I started getting concerned was when he would get confused with, um, his money. Um, he was having trouble paying bills and keeping all of that straight. And my dad was a very tight, um, frugal man. So, and he knew all about his money. So that is when I got concerned because he couldn't figure that out. And those were some of the things that when it hit him, I knew there was a problem. And I took him to the doctor, and the doctor never said he's getting dementia. He just said he was aging, and your dad is getting older, and he had other things like he had diabetes, and he had heart failure and high blood pressure. So the doctor basically told me it was more medical. He's just getting older. And it wasn't until after he passed away that I realized no, he had dementia. And the actual signs that started to show. But he was diagnosed with dementia November of 2016. So he was diagnosed late. And like I said, he died in April of 17. And looking back, I saw all of the 10 signs. And if I had known that the Alzheimer's Association was there and if I had known much about Alzheimer's and dementia, I would have been able to, I don't know, there's nothing that we could have given him to help with the process, but it would have helped me to help him. I would have known what I was dealing with because I didn't know what I was dealing with. He was just getting ornery and mean, and I just didn't know what I was dealing with. So I just think that knowing what is going on and knowing the signs, the warning signs, will give you the opportunity to get in front of it and then learn how to help your loved one who is going through it as well as yourself. Because if you know that you're dealing with someone who is declining, I think we used to call it back in the day. I mean, my grandfather, we used to call him senile, but looking back, that was dementia and Alzheimer's. My dad's sister, his oldest sister, was in a memory center, and this was the first time I really knew about Alzheimer's, but I didn't connect what was going on with her because she was in a memory center. She was in like stage 4, where she didn't recognize her children. My dad still knew who I was. And he would always say, I just don't want to go crazy. I just don't want to be crazy. And, for me, I used to pray that, God would take him before he got to that point where he just didn't have a good touch with reality. And he was able to get through those 10 signs. The I'd say stage 1-ish, 1 and 2, the person is able to come in and out of it. So they can figure out, oh, I've just slipped and I said something crazy, and they can pull it back in. So when my family members would call to check on him, they would call me and say, well, he sounds fine. And I'd say, yeah, you spent 20 minutes to an hour on the phone. You have to spend a whole day because he can't keep the facade up for the full day. The true person will come out sometime in that day. So, sometimes people are smart enough to know, okay, something's going on and I'm dealing with it, but I don't want my family to know because I can handle it and I'm fine. And so that's when they can cover up some of the memories. So they might have, in their mind, they think they're controlling it, but they have stickies all over the house. So that's your sign of saying there's a problem, or they keep asking. My dad would say, what day is it? But I didn't really think about that because when I'm not working or if I'm on vacation, I don't remember
Or
what day it is.
coronavirus, like every day is the same, right?
Yeah, Groundhog Day. So that wasn't a big thing to me. I misplace my things all the time. But when you start, because I used to think, oh my God, I've got most of the things on here I've done. But you have to think about when they say misplace your things. So if you put your keys in the freezer, yeah, that's a problem. But if you just, if you can't trace back, if you forget and you can't trace back to remember, then there's a problem. And that's when he couldn't trace back, and that's when we knew there was a problem. And then the visual spatial thing. A person who has Alzheimer's dementia, never sneak up on them because they don't have that space guard. you know if and I wasn't even trying to sneak up. It was just I walked up behind him and he couldn't hear very well. But I almost got decked a couple times because he just was very aggressive with that. And that is one thing they say is never sneak up on a person because they don't have that visual spatial you know um, um, feeling.
And
So
this is
everything is like,
really that element of spatial relationships is really important for safety's sake, because
yeah,
that impacts our ability to judge when you're walking, how far away a step is or the depth of a particular step. So this can
they
cause
don't know that either.
trip and falls, or if you're still driving, that spatial relationship of judging how close you are to another vehicle, or how far away
Hmm.
you are from the curb, or how long it's going to take you to slow down. So it could be very potentially dangerous. As far
That's
as
why they shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, as far as the confusion that you mentioned and forget misplacing things, they recently highlighted in the This Is Us, the story, um,
Yeah, I saw that.
that the mom was diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's, and she kept losing her phone. And at one point, she was slipping in and out of cognitive ability, as you mentioned, but she lost her phone repetitively, that they were replacing her phone frequently. And then she misplaced her phone at a grocery store and couldn't figure out how to get home for a while, and went missing. And things like that can be super scary for family members as the disease progresses. Something interesting on the list of early signs and symptoms was the forgetting of words, difficulty with conversation. And the example in the article I read was someone with Alzheimer's calling a watch a hand clock.
Yeah. You tend to go back to um, childhood stuff. So, a hand clock, I know it has, it tells time, that's a clock, but it's on my hand. So you start putting things together that you would do as a child, that's a hand clock, or um, pocketbook, you know, stuff like that. And you just get lost for words. You can't find the words that you're looking for, and simple words that you can't think of, you know. Um, Bed, is simple things like that. And that is frustrating. And I can remember seeing the frustration on my dad's face when he's trying to talk to me and he can't find the word to say it. And sometimes, depending on the conversation, I can help him, and he would get irritated with that because he'd say, "You're putting words in my mouth." And it's like, okay, well, I'll just, you just have to let them find their way. But it is a frustrating thing. And I because I'm a little worried, when I can't think of the word, sometimes we all do that. We're thinking of a word, and with menopause, I call them flatliners. I get flatliners a lot. And in the middle of a conversation, it just goes, "Zzz," and I don't remember what was I what was I trying to say. And so then my anxiety goes up. Oh my God, am I getting Alzheimer's? So, but that's one of the characteristics, and one of the signs, is not finding the words. And that, I think, is the most frustrating. I saw um, a video at the Alzheimer's Association, and there was a doctor who had been diagnosed, and he's a smart doctor, and he could not. He says, "I can't find simple words to hold a conversation." And the just the look on his face, you could feel his pain, but he had no control over that.
Hard. And I think that ties into two of the other symptoms on the list. One, withdrawal from social activities because they have a hard time holding a conversation or become confused,
Hmm.
or may even just start to feel uncomfortable in public settings because they get disoriented. So they tend to withdraw from things
Yes.
maybe that they've enjoyed. Or you might see changes in the mood or personality. And part of that could be the brain function failing or misfiring. But a lot of the symptoms of suspicion, you said the worms in the carpet, depression, fearfulness, anxiety,
Hmm.
becoming very easily upset. I think a lot of that, as you're physically declining, you could be easily, if you're having any kind of health condition, depression and
Yeah.
anxiety are huge um, factors of your own mental health as a whole.
Correct. That's correct.
The last one on the list that I want to talk about out of the top 10 signs and symptoms is decreased judgment in decision making. And one of the examples I provide was poor judgment when dealing with money. And I think this is a concern for some who are caring for an aging parent that maybe has dementia or Alzheimer's, because they're afraid someone's going to call on the phone or come to the door when they're not there, and mom's
Yeah,
going to write out a check for everything she has in her checking account, or make a bad financial decision because of um, her brain not working properly.
that
So
is correct.
what kind of protections, um, as someone who has experienced this, could people look at to protect their parents and make sure that that parent doesn't make unreasonable financial decisions when they're cognitively not firing on all cylinders?
Well, for me, I took over my dad's financial side. So I wrote all of his checks, paid his bills, and I instructed him to not to answer the door, um, and not to talk to, if anybody asks for money over the phone, do not give it to them. So with my dad being as frugal as he wasn't going to, quickly write out a check. Now, if someone had said, I think there was a scam going around where, they said your child or grandchild or something is in jail and we need you to write a check. Now, my dad would have fallen for something like that, but I just instructed him, don't answer the phone. And that wasn't hard because he hated salesmen. He hated people to call and try to sell him stuff. So he had a machine, answer machine. So he'd let it go to the answer machine. If he recognized the person, then he'd answer the phone. He'd pick it up. So it wasn't hard for me because, my dad, instructed him not to, but, he took my advice on that. But there are a lot of people who are a little lonely, and anybody comes to my aunt. I have an aunt in Texas who, before the family stepped in, salesmen would come and she'd let them in, she'd talk to them. And so that's the prime person who could be lured into spending all of their cash because they're lonely, they want to talk. And the salesman knows you're vulnerable and they can take all of your money. So family has to be very involved in what's going on. So when my cousins found out that she was doing that, now they took some serious measures. They put a camera in the house because she lives alone.
A camera is
They put
not
a
really a
camera in the,
bad idea for
I
if you
know,
have an aging parent. Um, it's good security for them and peace of mind that if someone does violate their premises, that you have that. A lot of people now are getting those Ring cameras at the door that gets the
right,
recording of people, and I think that if you promote it to the family member in the right way, that it's not just for their health safety so that you can check up on them and communicate with them, but it's also
right.
for their own personal security, because if they do live alone, you never know when someone's watching them and could prey on them because they know that they are older and living alone and maybe not in the best physical condition. So I think that's a
And
great suggestion. We got my grandmother one of those life alerts, uh,
I had that too for my dad.
so that
Yeah,
because she had fallen at some point and couldn't make it to the door. Luckily, she had a friend that she contacted every day as a check-in, and that friend, when she didn't answer the phone, came and assisted her, but making sure that they're safe is really important. That conversation
Mhm.
about taking over the bills, I think for some people, the parent could be combative. Was that an easy conversation for you?
Um, n- it wasn't it wasn't hard because I think my dad realized he was having trouble because he said, "I can't figure out how to balance my checkbook." So, at that point, he just felt like, "Let's just take care of it now because, it's just you and I. And if something happens to me, then, you know, um, I just want you to be able to take care of me." So when he first started getting sick, we went down and he put me on his checking account and all of his accounts. And so I was able to pay the bills for him. And then he got to a point where he would ask me to read it because he didn't know what it was saying, and he couldn't understand, he couldn't comprehend what the bill, like the utility bill would come in and he couldn't understand it. So I think when they realize that they can't handle it, then they're okay. And as long as they trust you, but they do go through a phase where um, they want to make sure that you're not stealing from them or you're not trying to take all their money. And it's really weird. He was watching TV and he saw a TV show where, I don't know, the kid was trying to kill the parent to get their inheritance and stuff like that. And so he asked me, and it's like, "Dad, why would you ask me something like that?" So sometimes his reality with TV and reality would mix. He'd have a dream and he'd think that dream was real. So it depends on where that person is in their journey. If when they feel comfortable. I've had a friend whose mother was very defiant and didn't want anybody to touch her account. So I think it depends on your relationship with your parent as well. If there's any kind of um, friction that has been in the past, sometimes that resurfaces, even though you've resolved it. But sometimes it resurfaces because they tend to take this journey in the past and they start living things in the past. And you had already gotten past that. My dad was talking about old you know old friends when he was a teenager, a girlfriend when he was a teenager, and just um, errors that you have no idea of what they're talking about, but they're living that right at that moment. So I would just say it depends on the person and where they are in their journey and how much they trust you, because you can have uh, an issue where it's a problem
Mhm.
and they're just not willing to give it up. So, but
There
I
are
think that,
some tools though, if they are still wanting to manage, tools that most of us probably already use, like auto
mhm.
pay. I have most of my bills on auto pay. It facilitates that process, and I don't have to write out checks. I don't have to make sure that the bill's paid on time because it comes straight out of my account. So
But
helping.
with older people, they don't like that. With I know my
This is
dad did
true.
not like any kind of automation. You're not touching my account. When you're dealing with, the 65 and older generation, they're very old school. They don't want automated anything. They don't want you to be able to pull anything out of their account. Because I did suggest that, and
Yeah.
he was not having it.
Well, things like that definitely do make it easier to facilitate that process so it's less for them to keep track. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that African Americans are twice as likely to have Alzheimer's, and Latinos are 1.5 times um, more likely to have the disease. And the differences for this, as you mentioned, are not well understood because the brain is a very complex thing and we don't know what exactly triggers the Alzheimer's or dementia. But researchers believe that higher rates of vascular disease in these groups also put them at that greater risk. You mentioned your dad had a heart disease. How can we
Hmm.
reduce the risk for those at higher incidence rates?
That's where the diet and exercise comes in, because as you said, um, heart disease, you've got diabetes, high blood pressure. All of those things are directly related to um, dementia and Alzheimer's. And African Americans, excuse me, and Hispanics have a higher rate of heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. So if you can kind of control the rate of the heart disease, the diabetes, and the high blood pressure, then you can decrease the rate of possibly decrease the rate of diagnosis. So that's why um, my mission is to get out, change your diet. Um, if you can remove, it's hard, but sugar is the main culprit. And I think sugar is the main culprit for everything. I know my mother had cancer and sugar was feeding the cancer. Sugar also feeds dementia. So sugar is bad. Tastes good, but it's bad. So the studies have shown that sugar is directly related to dementia and also inflammation. So we also know that inflammation is the main source of any disease. So once your body has inflammation, it's compromised and, diseases take control. So they have, the Alzheimer's research had done a study with Alzheimer's patients who had rheumatoid arthritis and those that did not. The patients who had rheumatoid arthritis progressed slower than the patients who did not. Part of that reason they found was because they were taking medication for inflammation. The inflammation was decreasing, so the dementia and Alzheimer's was not progressing because the inflammation was decreasing. So when I found that out, I said, okay, there is a direct connection to inflammation, to sugar, and the disease. So, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of those things can be controlled with diet and exercise. So that is why, since there's no cure right now, that is why there's a push to make sure that we get out in the community and let people know diet and exercise is important, especially in those groups, because those are the diseases that affect the group. And, the way we eat. I'm from Louisiana, and we eat everything smothered, covered in butter and fried. So that is a disaster for heart disease and diabetes. So that is our culture. That's how we eat, and that is part of the problem. So if we try to um, um, improve some of the things. And I'm not saying get rid of some of the good stuff because I still eat it, but it's just not my staple. I put more greens in there. I eat more, as we would say, God's food, and that's less processed food. So that helps with decreasing all of that. And I think that if we concentrated on our, improving our blood pressure, improving our heart condition, and our um, diabetes issue, the sugar level, then we can also prolong or lessen the severity. And I think those numbers will go down. But that's the reason that the numbers are so high.
And you hit the nail on the head, truly, that things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically, high blood pressure and high cholesterol are preventable
Hmm.
through diet and exercise. And when we say diet, we're talking not about the diet that most Americans have, that they eat good for a couple of weeks because they want to lose a couple pounds and then they go back to their normal eating. We're talking about eating, like you said, God's
Balance.
food, balanced, healthy, nutritious, whole foods, lots of veggies, things that are minimally or not processed as part of our lifestyle, not this temporary thing. And then you go back to eating fast food or something that's non optimal. The
Right.
research that the Alzheimer's Association has done is really validates this. In 2019, they said that in their research, adopting healthy lifestyle choices, including healthy diet, avoiding alcohol, not smoking, regular exercise, and cognitive stimulation decreases the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. And we've touched on, I think, all of those pieces except for the cognitive stimulation. You get some of that through exercise. I have a program called Healthy Fit Seniors that promotes a healthy lifestyle, exercise, and nutrition. And a lot of the exercises that we do in class involve, there's always an agility or coordination component because it helps maintain those neural synapses and makes your brain send the messages for coordination in your body. Um, Other things, my grandmother is 90 years old and my grandfather's 95, and they love puzzles and games. They do crosswords and things like that to help with their cognitive function. There's been a lot of studies about learning and how learning another language or doing mental stimulation helps keep your brain sharp. Because your brain is, to me, we think of it as another muscle, right? And if you don't use
Hmm.
it, you lose it. If you've ever learned another language and you don't practice for a long time, it gets stored way, way, way back in that file cabinet that has a big padlock on it. And when it comes time to use it, it takes a while to break that padlock, and some of the files inside are decrepit and destroyed. You have to kind of rebuild that foundation because you
Yeah.
haven't practiced. The same thing happens if we're not practicing using our muscles, whether it's our biceps or our brain. To maintain our independent, healthy, active lifestyle. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. As an advocate for Alzheimer's Association, what kind of projects do you have plans?
Well, I have the longest day, which I think you saw that on Facebook, and that is to work out. So I did the 20th I did a workout for the 20th and challenged other people to actually do it um, and to uh, request a donation. So I did meet my goal. And we're also working on the Alzheimer's Walk, which is our annual walk. And I'm on the committee for that as well.
Is
And
that
this
a
year is going to be a
virtual
little
walk?
different. I'm sorry?
Is that going to be a virtual walk this year?
Yes, this because of COVID, it is a virtual walk. So we're just trying to figure out what that looks like right now. So we're planning that. And as an active member of the NAACP, I'm also on the Health and Wellness Committee, and we're planning some type of wellness seminar in late summer, early fall. So just to get out and get the word out about a healthy lifestyle, diet, and exercise. So in the community. So those are some of the things that I have on the horizon.
Now, as the walk details develop, where can someone who's listening go to find out more information?
You can go to the Alzheimer's. website. And then also, I have my team. I have a walk team called Papa James Fountain. So that's my team. So if they're looking for a team to join, I would love them to join my team. And on the website, you can find walk, and then you can look for a team, and it will allow you to uh, pick a team. Now, the good thing this year with a virtual walk is your team can be anywhere in the world because it's virtual. So that's the good thing about it.
In addition to the walk, I know the website has a number of great resources. So if you have a family member with dementia and Alzheimer's, I would recommend reaching out to that resource, take a look at it, and see how it can support you on this journey. As a health professional who has worked with individuals who are suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, I can't emphasize enough, as we said, about proper diet, eating healthy foods, and exercise. And these exercise sessions really do slow the progression of the disease. Um, Sometimes my clients, if they get a little ornery or confused, will cut the sessions down to as short as a 10-minute slot. So you can have your family member do 5 or 10 minutes of exercise as their brain allows, and as their body allows throughout the day, just as kind of like a energy boost and a brain reboot. Have them do a couple exercises and then move on to something else, is a great way to keep them active, help keep them independent, help improve their brain focus and function, and again, slow the progression of the dementia or
Hmm.
Alzheimer's for them. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for joining me today to talk about dementia and Alzheimer's and exercise and your experience. I appreciate you so
I
much.
wanted to add one thing.
Yes.
Thank you. The Alzheimer's Association also has virtual classes. So if there's anyone out there who has questions or want to know a little bit more about the 10 warning signs or how to deal with a person that has dementia right now, there are several classes on the alzheimer.org website that they can attend free, and it's just a virtual class. So, and that 1-800 number is 800 272 3900. They have any questions or concerns.
Those are great resources. Thank you so much for sharing those. Thank you for joining me today. This is Dr.
Thank
Kellaprice with
you.
Healthy Fit. I'll see you next time.